measure out the space that you're going to be putting your collage on. Now remember at the beginning of the tutorial we measured out that this is roughly 6 by 9 and about 1/4 inch. So I want to cut out something that's going to leave roughly 1 inch all the way around. So you'll still get to see some of this background and it'll go along with the rest of the journal. So what I'm going to do is remeasure this. So when we first measured it, we started out over here, and I'm actually going to start right here where the binding ends. And that is just about 5 3/4 by 9 1/2. And I'm going to write that down. 5 by 9 1/2. So the math portion of this is not my strong suit. So this is something where I have to be extra careful because I'm afraid I'm gonna end up making it either too small, too wide, and so forth. So what I want to do is if I leave 1 inch on either side, that's going to be 7 1/2, and 1 inch on either side, so that would be 3 3/4. And I'm going to get out my paper trimmer. Okay, so got my ruler on this end. I'm going to make sure and get this in frame. Not easily done. And I want to cut this to roughly 4 inches wide. By 6 inches. And I'm sizing it down a little bit because I decided I wanted to show a little bit more of the burgundy background, and also it's kind of a cool look to have some dimension. So what I can do is line these up where I want these little guys to go, and have her, I have to make sure her elbow doesn't go off the edge here. And because I want to use this vellum paper on this manila paper, I'm going to adhere it with a glue stick. And if you've seen the previous videos, you'll know what I mean. So I really like this purple swirly effect right here, so I'm gonna see, I think that would look nice right around here. So I'm using Elmer's Craft Bond. This is extra strength. It's a really good glue stick and it's permanent. And because it's not liquid, it's not going to cause any of our papers to warp, which is really nice. So I'm just going to very liberally put this glue on. You want to get every little bit and then just kind of show it in the light to see if you've missed any spots. And I'm going to take my vellum and line it up. And this part can be a little bit tricky because the glue itself is strong enough that It's not that you just only get one chance, but you get basically maybe a couple of chances to get your paper adhered the right way. And could use, I use this from the center and out, just kind of curl your little fist there and do that to make sure no bubbles are coming out. You could also use a bone folder to make sure it's really well adhered and to get out the bubbles. And then because I used manila paper that was 2 pieces here, because I wanted it to be extra bulky, I'm gonna go ahead and glue these 2 pieces together. And once again, just very generously spreading that glue. This will be easier because it's already folded. And it dries fairly quickly. I do see some bubbles on the vellum, and I'm just going to try as best I can to burnish them out. And then she's going to go roughly there. Now let's grab our journal. I'm going to lay it out flat so it's not on a slope. And this is where you can start to arrange your pieces and see how you would like them. I'm starting to think, I'll try it with the fish. Starting to think about using the fish for something else. Okay, I like that. I think maybe a little bit of word art here somewhere would be nice, but that can be something you can decide a little bit later. And I like how she's coming off the edge here, and so is the caravan. Let me make sure that's in frame. Okay, so once again, I'm going to use the glue stick because I want as little warping as possible, and especially with this magazine sheet, it's not super thick paper, so the warping is going to be a bigger problem. So I definitely wouldn't use something like Mod Podge or Aleene's tacky glue for this. Another favorite dry adhesive is double-sided tape. That's another great one for no warping. Okay, so I'm just going to do the same burnishing. And once again, go over with my bone folder. I can tell my cat's got to that. Can you see those little marks? Those little cat teeth got there. Okay, whoops, and now I'm going to line her up and see exactly where I want her to lie. And this part I'm going to have to be a little bit more delicate because it's not just a, you know, one large piece. It's got a lot of little things going on here. So I really only have to ink part of it since some of it will be off of our background. want to make sure that moon doesn't come up over the edge of the top of the journal there. And then I'm just going to go ahead and burnish. Just going to use my fingers for this just because these little guys, I don't want them to get caught in the bone folder and get torn off. So there's the first couple of parts of our collage. And this caravan, as much as I love it, I want something darker here. I feel like this is a little bit too much color, a lot of bright colors. So I'm going to look through some of the Tim Holtz Chit Chat stickers and see if I might find something that could go right here that's in black. So I grabbed a few different laces that I thought would make for a nice mixed media look. And because we left these extra spaces around our main piece here, we have room where we could put lace all the way around and still have some of the front cover showing. So what I'm going to do is line up exactly where I want this to be. I'm going to stand up to look at that because I know I'm looking at it from a seated position and that doesn't necessarily give you the most accurate look here. Okay, and then just going to use a pencil So this is a water-soluble pencil, so it can come away very easily with water. You could also use just one that easily erases. And now I want to know exactly where that lace needs to go. Make sure to get that corner, that's very important. Take a look, okay. And now I'd like to dye the lace. So I usually use packaging for this. Plastic packaging that you don't care about. Especially if you use something like alcohol ink or something that's going to stain a container that you don't want stained. So I'm going to use this guy. It's got a nice pan in it, and let's make sure I've got the right lace. Okay, so we know that the top pieces of the lace are going to be 4 inches, top and bottom are 4 inches, and side to side are each going to be 6. So I'm going to grab my ruler again. I'm going to leave a little bit of leeway because this lace is a tiny bit frayed on the edge, so. And then I'm just going to cut. And leave a little extra. It's always better to cut more than less. Okay, so this is how these turned out, and I have them laid out here now. They're all nice and dry. And I went ahead and just dyed the rest of the spool. There wasn't a ton of lace left, so I just went ahead and dyed it the same rust color. And the nice thing is that anytime you have an element in a journal, if it's a repeating element throughout the journal, it'll add to the flow. So for instance, if moons are a big thing in your journal, seeing moons throughout will give the journal owner a sense of kind of cohesion. So it's always nice to add similar elements throughout. So now we're going to place this again and see how we like that. And I actually really like these frayed edges. I think they add to that antique look. So I'm going to put this aside again and then start to adhere these. And we want to use a matte medium, which can be a few different mediums. You just want to make sure it's going to be matte. This is actual matte medium. But you could use matte, Mod Podge, anything that's not going to be shiny and distract from what you're gluing down. So I'm going to take a little paintbrush and adhere these. And I'll take a little extra to go around the edges so that it's very well adhered. I'm pretty much globbing this on because I want plenty of adhesive. Okay, so I've been making a nice little mess here. I'm using something called Yes Paste, and the reason I want to use this for making our cover image look more vintage is because the Yes Paste, it has a little bit of liquid in it, but it's going to be the least likely to warp. So I did a couple of test papers to see how they would do, and they didn't warp. So this is kind of a DIY distress glaze, which Ranger does sell a distress glaze that will give an antique finish, but what I've found is that it still will warp the paper, and of course we don't want that. So I'm just going to put this all over our cover image here, and since it's transparent you'll still be able to see plenty of the color underneath, but it's just going to give it a nice vintage look. and a more uniform look because the entire thing will be covered with the same glaze. And I'm just using a palette knife for this so that it has somewhat of an uneven coverage. I've just recently really gotten into using palette knives, and there's a lot of benefits to them versus using just, you know, a run-of-the-mill paintbrush. And one of them is you can add texture in a way that you would not get with a paintbrush. So some of these lighter areas, like where the white peeks through, we can just take our little palette knife, go in there, and this will dry, and it won't be super glossy like it is right now. And it'll also, because it is a paste, will make sure that all of these pieces stay together. And as you can see, they're not warping. Now, copy paper, something super thin, that might warp, just because just about anything is going to make that warp. But for these thicker cardstock weight papers that we've used, it'll be fine. So I want to get the moon there. And this will help give it more of a finished look as well. Not only does it add the texture, but it'll just give it a nice glaze, kind of like when you add resin, if you've ever used epoxy resin in your projects. It can just add a really nice finish that makes it look more professional, and just shows that you've put a little more care and time into your project. So I'm just looking for any little areas that are still standing out as not having been covered. And especially for these spots that are sticking out, it's going to help beef those up as well, so that they're not going to take too much of a beating on the front of our cover. So I don't know how well that shows up on camera. It's very glossy right now, but you'll see once it dries the really nice, cool vintage look that it will have. And just in case you were wondering what happened to this little cutie, I decided it was gonna be best used inside the journal. It was a little bit too much color on the front cover, so the caravan is not forgotten. just going to take an old paintbrush, and the way patina would happen on copper is you'd start with something copper. So I'm going to paint these with this nice rich copper effect paste. And I did get these Prima sets at Michael's, and I noticed over the last few weeks that they've been clearancing these, and I don't know if that means that they are not going to be selling them at Michael's anymore, which is a bummer. I guess it depends on the Michael's, because I did see at a couple of different Michael's that they still had them on the shelf and they're regular price, so I'm hoping that they will still keep the Finnabair collections around, because she has a lot of really neat mixed media stuff that you really can't find anywhere else in those types of combinations. So I'm not sure if I'm going to use the turquoise on this at all, just because it is so bright, and I don't want, again, for it to take over the entire cover. And I'm also tempted just to leave these copper because they look so nice. I mean, the copper really brings out the detail in their hair and their face, and we'll just see how it goes. And I'll first just try it out. And when you're doing this collage style work, I heard Dina Wakely say this in a video, that she really works intuitively, and so you just kind of look at what you're working at and see how it feels to you more than what you're looking at, if that makes sense. So does it feel right, so to speak? Which was part of why I took the Gypsy Caravan out of the front, away from the cover, just because it felt too busy, and I thought, well, that Gypsy Caravan would make a really cute little pocket inside. So I'm going to wait for these to dry, and then I will start to arrange them and see if it might look nice with just to show you how these turned out. I did end up using a little bit of the turquoise, but mostly the mint green, and I've already glued one down onto the journal cover. But I think they look pretty believable as a genuine patina. And the nice thing with these patina pastes is that you can go back in and say if you think there's a little bit too much of one color, you can always just go back in and dab on in that area. So these are really fun, and especially the mint green paste gives it a sandy texture like patina actually happens, real patina. So see how that's real rough right there? So super cool. It looks like statues you might see in an old garden. So I have all of these things pressing down on my journal front because I just sealed that image right in the middle with matte medium, and that's the same, that's what this is right here. So it can act as like a decoupage glue, it can act as a sealant, and a really good strong adhesive. And so I'm using it as an adhesive, and I just layered the back of this front image with a good amount of this. I've heard it described as kind of like spreading butter on bread, so that amount of butter. You want good even coverage, and you want it to be thick enough. So that's just something to think about. And as I'm waiting for this to dry down, I'm going to be adhering these little pieces and kind of figuring out the best placement for each of these. So here's the finished cover. I went ahead and adhered the 4 different polymer clay embellishments to the 4 sides. I used what's called heavy gloss gel, which is just basically a heavy gel medium, to adhere those, and I let them dry overnight. So thanks so much for watching, you guys. I really hope you enjoyed this part 2 of the book cover tutorial, and I will be coming back next week with another junk journal tutorial for you. I hope that you're having a great weekend, and I will see you soon. All right, take care. Bye-bye.